Chelsea are coming for everyone this summer, and you need to pay attention. Let me ask you something. When was the last time Chelsea made you genuinely excited about a transfer window before it even officially opened? Not the kind of excitement that comes from rumors that go nowhere, not the kind that fades after one disappointing press conference. I am talking about the real kind, the kind where you look at the names being linked and you think to yourself, okay, this club actually has a plan. Because right now, in April 2026, Chelsea are doing exactly that. Two names have started dominating the conversation in a very serious way. Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa and Valentin Barco from Strasbourg, two young players, two completely different profiles, and both of them are pointing straight towards Stamford Bridge. This is not just another Chelsea window full of noise and confusion. Something feels different, something feels deliberate. And in this piece, we are going to break it all down so that you understand exactly what is happening, why it matters, and what it could mean for Chelsea going forward. So let us get into it. First things first, who is Morgan Rogers? If you have been watching the Premier League closely over the last year or so, you already know who Morgan Rogers is. But just in case you have not had the chance to follow Aston Villa as closely as some of us, here is the simple version. Morgan Rogers is a 23-year-old attacking midfielder who has been one of the most exciting players in the Premier League. He is quick, he is direct, he is creative, and he has the kind of energy that defenders genuinely hate dealing with. He came through the Manchester City Academy, which already tells you something about the level of his potential, and after moving to Aston Villa, he really started to show the world what he can do. Now here's where it gets interesting. A report from The Sun claims that Morgan Rogers is open to leaving Aston Villa this summer, and not just because of where Villa finish in the league. The report says that even if Aston Villa qualify for the Champions League next season, Rogers would still be open to going to a Premier League rival. That is a significant statement. It tells you that his decision is not purely based on which European competition he gets to play in. It is based on something bigger. And what is that bigger thing? According to the report, Rogers wants to regularly compete for major trophies. He wants to be at a club where winning is the standard, not the dream. And that desire, that ambition, has reportedly led him and Aston Villa to reach what is described as an understanding that a summer exit would be right for everyone involved. Think about that for a second. The player and the club are both on the same page. That is not always the case in football. Usually you have a player who wants to leave while the club digs in and refuses to negotiate, or you have a club that wants to sell but the player is not interested in moving. Here, both sides seem to be moving in the same direction. Villa want to get the best possible value for him this summer. Rogers wants the next chapter of his career to begin. And Chelsea are right there in the middle, ready to make it happen. The price being talked about is 115 million. That is a big number. It is a very big number. But is it fair value? When you look at Rogers' age, his quality, his potential, and the fact that he is already performing at a high level in one of the best leagues in the world, you can actually make an argument that it is. Players of his profile, young, English, skillful, and proven in the Premier League, do not come cheap. They never have. And in the current market, 115 million for someone like Morgan Rogers is not as shocking as it might sound when you first hear it. The Chelsea connection and why it makes sense. Now let us talk about why Chelsea specifically makes sense for Morgan Rogers. Chelsea have been building a squad full of young, technically gifted players. It has not always been smooth. There have been bumps along the way. There have been moments where the project looked more chaotic than coherent. But when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, you can start to see what they are trying to build. They want a squad that combines technical quality with physical intensity. They want players who can press, who can create, who can adapt. Morgan Rogers ticks every single one of those boxes. At 23, he is exactly the kind of player who fits the profile Chelsea have been targeting. He is old enough to contribute right now, but young enough to still grow and develop even further. But here is the question you have to ask yourself. Is Chelsea the right move for Rogers specifically? He said he wants to compete for major trophies. Is Chelsea genuinely in a position to offer him that? That is a fair question. Chelsea are not Manchester City. They are not Liverpool. They have not won the league in a while, and they are still in the process of putting together a squad that can genuinely challenge at the top of the table consistently. So when Rogers says he wants to win trophies, is Chelsea a step in that direction, or is it more of a sideways move? Here is the honest answer. It depends on how this window goes. If Chelsea bring in Rogers and complement him with the right players around him, it is absolutely possible that within 2 or 3 years, this squad could be challenging seriously. And Rogers, at 23, would be right in the peak of his career at exactly that moment. So if he buys into the project, if he believes in what Chelsea are building, this could actually be the perfect move for both sides. Also worth noting is that Arsenal and Liverpool are also monitoring the situation. The report from Team Talk through correspondent Graham Bailey says both clubs are keeping a close eye on Morgan Rogers, but here is the thing, their interest is described as less advanced than Chelsea. So while other big clubs are watching, Chelsea are the ones who are actually pushing. Chelsea are the ones who are intent on getting the deal done even if other clubs qualify for the Champions League. That level of commitment means something. It shows Rogers that Chelsea are serious. Now let us talk about Valentin Barco. If Morgan Rogers is the high-profile Premier League name, Valentin Barco is the hidden gem. And I say hidden gem not because he is not talented, because he absolutely is, but because most Chelsea fans outside of the hardcore transfer community might not know as much about him yet. Valentin Barco is 21 years old. He plays as a central midfielder for Strasbourg in France. He is Argentine. And based on everything that has been reported over the last day or so, he is pretty much on his way to Chelsea already. This is not a maybe situation. This is not a rumor from a random source. According to Fabrizio Romano, which is about as close to a guarantee as you can get in modern football, Chelsea are now the front-runner to sign Barco this summer. Romano also reports that Barco himself has already agreed to personal terms with Chelsea. The management now just needs to finalize the negotiations between the two clubs. And here is another update from Romano just 12 hours before that report. He said Barco has given his approval for a potential summer move to Chelsea and that the transfer appears to be a formality. Not a possibility, not a hope, a formality. Romano was very specific about the language here. The question, he said, is about when the move will be announced, not whether it will happen. Barco wants to play for Chelsea next season. That part is done. Then there is a report from insider Gaston Adul, who wrote on social media that the move is confirmed and that Chelsea are buying the Argentine international. Adul also mentioned that there is already a contractual agreement in place and an understanding between the clubs, and that Barco will join midway through the year. So to put it plainly, we have Fabrizio Romano saying it is essentially done from a personal terms perspective. We have Gaston Adul saying the contractual agreement is already there. This one is basically wrapped up. The paperwork just needs to be completed. Now, why is this such a smart piece of business from Chelsea? First of all, there is the ownership angle. Strasbourg and Chelsea share the same owners. That means this is not a hostile negotiation between two clubs who have completely different interests. This is more like an internal arrangement. Chelsea have the chance to sign Barco in what would be described as a relatively straightforward deal because both clubs are part of the same ownership structure. No agent wars, no clubs refusing to sell, no complicated negotiations that drag on for months. This is clean, this is efficient, and this is smart. Second, Barco is only 21. We are talking about a player who is already performing well enough in League One to attract Premier League attention. He is already being described as following in the footsteps of Emmanuel Omega, who also made the move to Stamford Bridge. At 21, a central midfielder with his quality has an enormous ceiling. He could be a massive part of Chelsea midfield for the next 8 to 10 years if everything goes right. Third, the timing works. If he joins midway through the year, as reported, he gets to settle into the environment before next season starts. He gets to understand the system. He gets to build relationships with his teammates. By the time preseason begins in the summer, he will not be a stranger. He will already feel like part of the group. That is so important for a young player making a big move. What do these two signings mean for Chelsea together? Now here is where it gets really interesting, because when you look at these two potential signings side by side, you start to see a pattern that is actually really encouraging for Chelsea fans. Think about it this way. Barco is a central midfielder. Rogers is an attacking midfielder. They operate in different areas of the pitch, but both contribute to the creative and dynamic side of Chelsea play. You are looking at a midfield and attacking line that could have serious energy, serious movement, and serious quality. Chelsea have been criticized in recent seasons for lacking a clear identity in the middle of the park. Too many times the midfield has felt either too passive or too disconnected from what is happening in the final third. Bringing in a technically gifted central midfielder in Barco alongside an attacking midfielder like Rogers, who can link play, make runs, and create chances changes that conversation completely. But here's the big question. Can these two players actually play together in the same system? That is something Enzo Maresca will need to work out. The manager will have to decide how to organize the team in a way that gets the best out of both players. There are tactical questions that need answers. Does Rogers play as a 10 behind the striker? Does he play off the left like he sometimes does for Villa? Where exactly does Barco fit in the midfield structure? These are not problems, they are puzzles, and the right manager with the right approach can absolutely solve them. What we can say for certain is that the intention from Chelsea is clearly to add quality and youth to the squad. These are not players being signed to warm the bench. These are players being signed because Chelsea believe they can be key contributors. And when you are spending $115 million on one player and finalizing personal terms with another, you are making a statement. You are saying that you are serious. The trophy question, and what Rogers really wants. Let us come back to something that was mentioned earlier because it deserves its own section. The motivation behind Morgan Rogers wanting to leave Aston Villa. It is not about money, it is not about location, it is not even purely about European football. It is about trophies. Rogers wants to win things. He is 23 years old and he has looked at his career and decided that he wants to be at a place where winning major honors is a realistic possibility. That is the mindset of a top player. That is the mentality you want in your squad if you are trying to build something serious. Now, some people will read that and immediately ask whether Chelsea is really the right destination for someone with that ambition. And as mentioned earlier, it is a fair challenge. But here is a different way to look at it. Rodgers is not looking for a club that is winning right now. He is looking for a club that is building towards winning. He is 23. He is not in the final years of his career chasing one last medal. He is at the beginning of his peak years. He wants to be at a place where, over the next 5 or 6 years, he can be part of a team that grows into a genuine title contender. And when you look at what Chelsea are assembling, when you look at the youth in the squad, the investment that keeps coming in, the ambition of the ownership, it is not crazy to think that Chelsea could be competing for the title within a few years. If Rodgers joins and helps them get there, then his gamble paid off. He would be remembered as someone who came in when things were still being built and helped make them great. That is a legacy. That is worth more than joining a club that is already at the top and being one piece in an already complete puzzle. Does that resonate with you as a fan? Can you see the bigger picture Chelsea are trying to paint here? The numbers behind the business. Let us take a moment to appreciate the financial side of this as well. 115 million for Morgan Rodgers. That is the headline figure. And yes, it is a lot of money, but Chelsea have shown repeatedly that they are willing to spend when they believe in a player. The question is always whether the investment pays off. For Rodgers, the argument is pretty straightforward. He is English, he is 23, he is already one of the most dynamic attackers in the Premier League. His resale value, if he performs well, will only go up. And if he becomes a key player for both Chelsea and England over the next few years, 115 million will start to look like a bargain. That is how modern football transfers work. The upside on a player of his profile is enormous. For Barco, there is no fee mentioned yet. Given the ownership link between Chelsea and Strasbourg, the deal is likely to be structured in a way that benefits both clubs without the kind of inflated fee that would come with signing from a completely separate entity. That is a huge advantage. Chelsea essentially get first access to talented players from their sister club at a price that reflects the relationship between the two ownership groups. That is smart business. When you put both deals together, Chelsea are potentially getting two young, talented, hungry players for what could be considered reasonable market value. One deal is expensive but justifiable. The other deal is relatively straightforward and efficient. That combination is exactly what good transfer business looks like, what the community is saying and what you think. This brings us to the fans, because at the end of the day, transfers like this are not just business decisions, they are emotional events, they are moments that define how a fan base feels about the direction of their club. For a lot of Chelsea fans who have been frustrated by the inconsistency of recent seasons, signings like Rodgers and Barco feel like a reason to be optimistic again. Not blindly optimistic, not the kind of optimism that ignores problems, but the genuine, grounded kind of optimism that comes from seeing your club make moves that actually make sense. Rodgers brings Premier League proven quality and a winning mentality. Barco brings youth potential and the kind of clean transfer process that Chelsea fans rarely get to enjoy. Together, they represent something that Chelsea have been trying to build for a while now. So here are a few questions for you to think about and discuss in the community. Do you think 115 million is the right price for Morgan Rodgers, or is it too much for a player who has never played in a Champions League club-level environment? Do you believe Chelsea are genuinely capable of challenging for the title within the next 3 years if they keep assembling a squad like this? And what do you think about the Strasbourg connection? Is it smart business to sign players from your sister club, or does it limit Chelsea's ability to bring in the very best talent from across the world? These are the conversations worth having. These are the debates that make following a club like Chelsea so fascinating right now. Because the decisions being made this summer are not just about next season, they are about the next chapter. One more thing about the bigger picture. Before we wrap this up, there is one more angle worth considering. The fact that Arsenal and Liverpool are also tracking Morgan Rodgers. This is not just a detail, this is a storyline, because if Chelsea are serious about signing Rodgers, they are going to have to compete with two clubs who are arguably ahead of them in the league right now. Arsenal have been consistent contenders. Liverpool, under their current setup, have been strong. These are not clubs that Rodgers would be turning down lightly. The fact that Chelsea interest is described as more advanced than either Arsenal or Liverpool says something important. It says Chelsea moved quickly, it says Chelsea made a strong impression early, and it says that Rodgers is genuinely considering them as a real option despite the competition from clubs who might seem like a safer bet for trophies right now. That is a credit to Chelsea and to whoever is doing the negotiations behind the scenes. Getting ahead of Arsenal and Liverpool in a transfer battle for a player of Rodgers' quality is not easy. And if Chelsea can close it out and get the deal done before the summer window officially opens, that would be a statement of intent to everyone in the league. It would say that Chelsea are not waiting for others to move first. They are leading. And in football, the clubs that lead in the transfer market usually set the tone for what happens on the pitch as well. Wrapping it all up. So what have we learned today? We have learned that Morgan Rogers at 23 is a player who wants to win things and is open to leaving Aston Villa this summer. We have learned that Chelsea are the leading club in the race for his signature and that the reported fee is around 115 million. We have learned that both player and club have an understanding that a summer move is the right next step for everyone involved. We have also learned that Valentin Barco at 21 is a central midfielder from Strasbourg who is basically already a Chelsea player. Personal terms are agreed. Fabrizio Romano says it is a formality. Gaston Edol says the contractual agreement is in place. The move is essentially done. Two young players, two smart pieces of business, one clear vision for what Chelsea are trying to build. Is this the summer that Chelsea fans finally get to say that everything is coming together? Is this the window that makes you sit back and think, yes, this club has a plan and they are executing it? That question will not be answered until we see how it all plays out on the pitch next season. But right now, today, in early April 2026, there is genuine reason for Chelsea fans to feel good about the direction things are heading. Morgan Rogers, Valentin Barco. The future of Chelsea midfield might just be taking shape right in front of us, and it looks exciting. Stay close to this one, because this summer is shaping up to be a big one at Stamford Bridge. And the best part? It feels like it is only just getting started.